Sensitivity to criticism and desire for praise is related to subconscious or conscious fear and shame. If there is a part of you, maybe it's subconscious, that is afraid of not being worthy, not being good, then criticism pokes that wound. Therefore, the conscious mind is trying to avoid criticism by having proof of worth, which can happen through the negative free child or the negative adaptive child. So in that sense, the negative free child and negative adaptive child are managers in the internal family systems model because they are trying to prevent that experience of fear and shame. If you're an anger type, Enneagram 8, 9, and 1, there's something different operating, although with type 1, there's a desire to be perfect, so that also is a fear of being criticized and a desire to avoid shame. Now, when we work with our own minds, when our mind says, oh, you're good because of, or things are good because of, we go to beginner's mind. We don't suppress, agree, or disagree. We credit that message as not being from us. It's coming from some outside source. Whatever we want to assign it to, God, the universe, systems, habits, polarization, gunas, yang, whatever you want to attribute it to. Anytime there's pride from someone praising you or from a thought saying this is good, you are good. Don't take the bait. And the more you do that, then the less you're going to be impacted by the other side of the equation, because it's all equaling out shame. So if there's an internal criticism that says you're bad because of, or this situation is bad because of, beginner's mind, it's not for you to suppress, agree, or disagree. Just focus on this came from an outside source, whether it's God, the universe, or a system. There is some kind of thought that is being critical. I'm not saying that God is being critical, but I am suggesting it's possible that God, as the universe, as everything, as the system, as the grand open design, the grand ovum domain, it is responsible for everything that's happening, including the thoughts that are critical. So, not to punish you, just as a spark to something that is good in the end. And what is good in the end, I feel, is that when these thoughts of criticism, praise, fear of criticism, desire for praise, happen internally from your own mind, I am not the source of this. I do not need to agree or disagree with this. I have beginner's mind about whether it's true or not. It's not my business. I'm just here to observe. I'm powerless to. I was powerless about the situation that came upon, that caused this thought. I'm not powerless to do anything about this thought. I have no power. This is unmanageable. I am just an observer here. Then, the more you do that, the less likely that someone's criticism is going to affect you or their praise is going to affect you. It may affect you, but it's less likely to hook you. You'll be like, oh, it's the same thing I do to myself. It's the same polarization operating. And I don't need to go down that road. I feel compassion for the part of me that does want to go down that road. The fear of criticism, the revulsion at criticism, the aversion to a criticism moment, the desire to be praised, or the joy of having the praise. I'm not suppressing that. I'm just saying that's not me. The reaction to enjoy or desire praise, the reaction to fear or have aversion towards criticism, I'm just sitting here watching that. I'm just watching that. So it's happening. I'm not denying that it's happening. It's just I'm not the subject of it, and I'm not the cause of it, and there's nothing I can do to make less of it happen. You might say, what are you talking about? Of course you can. Do what people expect you to do, follow the rules, you'll get praise. Or, don't do what people expect you to do, don't follow the rules, and you get praise from your inner free child. All theoretically true, but that all presumes that you have free will. So, If you let go of that attachment that I am in control, I decide whether I'm going to adapt negatively or positively, or I'm going to go to free child negatively or positively. If you think that's up to you, then go for it. But the problem is that if you think it's up to you, then you have to take responsibility. You have to take blame and you have to take credit, and you get tied to the image as being who you are. And all this moves you away from unity with the divine, with the universe, with the system, with the benevolent domain, whatever you want to call it, spirit, true self, all hidden when you think that you are the one who is choosing to be free, to pursue purpose, to get praise, or you are the one who's then restraining that with criticism or fear of criticism and limits. If you think that's who you are, you gotta go for both. You're polarized, and you'll go from one to the other. Rajas to Tamas. The center column of the tree of life, the balance, the sphere 6, and the unity. I believe the way to that is to say, this is not me, not this, not this. This pride, this shame, whether it's internal or external, whether it's a desire or aversion around it, I'm just observing it compassionately, but I'm just observing it. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I did to bring it. If you succeed, something that you are doing and you want to get praise, or you do get praise, you're attached. If it doesn't succeed, or you didn't have a plan and things just went badly, you're attached. But if you say, plans arise, not from me, they're judged as good or bad, not from me, they're executed well or poorly, not from me, then you're free. There is the advance, there is the retreat. There is the pride, there is the shame. There is the I like that thought, there is the I don't like that thought. Or I like that form, I don't like that form. I like myself, don't like myself. These are splits on the tree of life. The left side is limits. Lake, fire, mountain. So when you don't like a thought, that's when there's a mountain put up, or a fire trying to burn it, or a lake which is somehow contained. You're trying to understand, so you don't like the thought because you're trying to understand. However, on the other side of the tree, if you like the thought, that is the wind. You want to continue it. You want to have that perpetuation. You want to even break down the barriers of the mountain, of the fire, or the lake. If you're on the right side of the tree with a sense of purpose, a sense of pride, then it's not only aligned with wind, but also river. You keep on moving. Just like the wind keeps on moving, the river keeps on moving. You want to get somewhere. Purpose, pride. And if you're on a religious path, you might see a religious leader about your pride, right? Because you'll see there's limits to the pride. But if you're seeing a therapist, you might want to work on the shame, which is the limits and the judgment and the negativity. That's the fire. But both of them are technically the same thing, right? They're both aligning with an identity, taking yourself to be some image that the mind has put forth, and then you have a judgment, quote unquote you, but it's actually given to you by something beyond you. We can just call it the mind for now, but I think it goes much deeper than that, which is aligned with the polarity of space and time as we see in the tree. And then the thunder on that right side of the tree, that's the shock. And the shock is often that forward propulsion, that reverberation. In a sense, it's the opposite of mountain and opposite of lake, which are holding things still. thunder is pushing forward. And so when we have a thought or an image of ourselves or an emotion, right after it, it's likely there's going to be some kind of judgment. I like it. I have pride about this. I'm glad I had this thought. This is putting me in a good light. I'll be safe and secure and powerful. I'll be thunderous. I'll be a river, keep on moving. I'll be a wind wearing down my obstacles. Or I don't like that image of myself, or I don't like that thought, or I don't like that emotion. And then it is a limit, shame, the lake being contained, the fire putting up limits, the mountain putting up boundaries. So if you see that these thoughts, and more importantly, in a sense, because it's more subtle, the reactions to the thoughts are given by the tree, then you don't have to identify as the one who had the thought, emotion, or mental image, like who created it, nor the one who's judging it. You're stepping back and being the observer of that phenomenon. Often when we finish something, whether it's a recording like this, or a book, or an interaction with somebody, or a task, or a replay of our life story, there's going to be that return. So the call, trial, return, that judgment, that assessment of, did the negative adaptive child or positive adaptive child, or did the negative free child or positive free child, did they do well? Did they achieve the objective? And through IFS, we might say their objective is to prevent some emotion, some vulnerability from being felt, the exile. So it may be you want to succeed, adapt, left side of the tree, because you fear the sensation of shame. Or it may be that you want to play because you want to satiate your desires and hide from the fear. Or it may be some shame about anger, in which case the limit is with Enneagram 9 to suppress it. The Enneagram 1 is to get rid of that, and with the 8 as well, to get rid of that mirroring that you're experiencing due to seeing something outside in the world you don't like. With the 1, seeing imperfection and dirt, and with the 8, seeing someone having control or potential control over you. So that's a little bit different for the anger types. But essentially, the main point of this is notice if you're liking or disliking a thought, an image, or an emotion, and then consider that both the thought and the reaction to the thought are given to you by an outside, uncontrollable force. It's not your product. It's not your creation. And then you don't identify with the thought or the emotion or the mental image. You don't identify as the creator of it, and you don't identify as the judge of it. Call, trial, return, Bardo. When you are in the return, when you judge a mental creation or a body creation, so in other words, a thought, an emotion, a body sensation, mental image, in that moment, that's when you really take authorship of it. You say, this is my body having this sensation, or this is my emotional body having this emotion, or I produce this thought. But the more you practice saying that this is given to me from wherever, you could say from God, from the universe, from the systems, this is given to me by the active force, then you have less need to judge it. But if you do judge it, that's when it really solidifies, when you take in the return. That's when you take credit for or blame for. That's when you have pride or shame. And, when you go to a therapist to deal with shame issues, and you go to a religious person to go for the pride issues, but they're both the same thing. They're both identification as the self-image, as the author of the thought, as the generator of the emotional experience. And that's fine, except it brings suffering. So, if the universe is willing, if God is willing, then you will see a thought, emotion, or mental image arise, and either say, not this, or you say, it is given to me, or God has given this to me. And then, if you miss that, you've got the second chance, which is when you notice very quickly there's pride or shame, there's like or dislike. And then, if you disown that, you say, oh, there is this move to like or dislike, there is this move for pride or shame, there is this move for purpose or limit, there is this move for advance or retreat, there is this move for rajas or sattva. Rajas or tamas. Sattva is where we want to go, right? So by bringing peace, ideal parental figure, to the negative adaptive child that has that shame, doesn't like the thought, if it's a negative free child thought, or the negative free child, bringing the IPF, the ideal parental figure, the sattva, to that rajasic negative free child, when it says, I like this, let's advance, I'm proud of this, you just say, beginner's mind, I think that is given, that is not, I am not the pride that is being generated is not coming from me, and the pride of what it's proud about is not mine either. The shame that's being generated is not coming from me, and the shame of which it's referring is not me either. It's more easy, perhaps, to do it with pride, because pride, while you don't want to give it up, it's easier to give it up because it's not as, perhaps, it's not as grasping to you, whereas shame, it's so painful, and you really want to give it up, so it works in reverse, where it's harder to give it up. So if you practice with pride, then you can bring it over to shame as well. In all these cases, it's just bringing compassion, sattva, ideal parental figure, true self in the internal family systems model. You're just saying, oh, I see that you don't like what I just did, or I see that you do like what I just did. And that's okay. I don't need to take ownership of that pride or that shame.